Hello, and welcome to the Inside Scoop. Here, we diagnose characters, analyze their psychology, behavior, what drives them, what makes them who they are. And today, we're talking about Reginald P. Worthington, the first. Now, I'll go ahead and tell you that I'm not going to reveal the stories of this character. If you want to know the full details of the events that transpire, then you're going to have to read The Dealer's Tale, both 1 and 2, but specifically today we're going to focus on A Dealer's Tale 1 and the story that unfolds and how Reginald P. Worthington is affected by this psychologically. To start things off, I think you need to understand who Reginald P. Worthington is. As the story begins, Reginald P. Worthington is simply a kid, born into an upper class family, and raised with a strict set of guidelines as to his behavior and activities, who he was supposed to be. In other words, there's a lot of pressure on Reginald to become who they want him to be. And our character, Reginald P. Worthington, is a typical kid in this matter. He does what his parents tell him to, and the only thing he really has to himself are his dreams, and a lingering desire that he can't quite put his finger on. In truth, it's simply a desire for freedom, a desire to have personal choice in his life, to not simply be his parents' puppets, doing what they want him to. And in this desire for freedom, he's approached by a character who offers him something that will let him acquire that freedom, to have personal choice in his life. Now, before this transpires, Reginald simply feels like a prisoner in his own life. He's there, but his own desires hardly matter. He's simply going through the motions because that's what he's supposed to do. But as the story progresses and Reginald begins to develop, things actually start to look up, becoming more positive for him. His outlook starts to change and he starts to gain a more positive sense for his life, hope for his future and the events that'll unfold. It's here that we truly start to see the character Reginald P. Worthington develop. You find more than just being a typical rich kid, that he's actually fairly nice. I mean, don't get me wrong, he has his quirks that typically come from the way he was raised and what he was taught to believe about things. In his normal day-to-day life, he's a bit of an overthinker, analyzing the details of everything, the strategy that goes into every thought and action he takes. The type of person who spends a lot of time in their own head. As for most of his life, that's the only place that he could really call his. Inside of his head is the only place that he had any sort of freedom, so he spent a lot of time there. As a natural character flaw, Reginald P. Worthington is actually fairly manipulative. A lot of his goals tend to revolve around making sure that he gets his way about things. I do want you to know that this is a flaw, and originally and normally it's associated with very bad people that you don't want to interact with. But Reginald P. Worthington's manipulative behavior, once again, is just a part of his upbringing and the unique psychology that developed from it. And unlike a truly bad person, although Reginald P. Worthington is manipulative, this manipulative behavior is rarely focused on negatively affecting others, even though he can and is manipulative on a regular basis. His true heart's desire isn't to take from others, to bring others suffering in exchange for his own profit. This is a characteristic which truly defines negative and bad people. But despite the fact that Reginald P. Worthington has this single characteristic of being manipulative in common with them, this is where he drastically diverges from that. Yes, he does use manipulation, and of course he wants to benefit himself. But as manipulative as he can be, far more often than not, he uses it to help not only himself, but the people that he cares about, trying to manipulate situations so that it comes to a positive outcome for everyone, not solely concerned with taking the maximum of whatever he can get at the expense of everyone around him. Rather, he manipulates things so that everything is fair. He doesn't control the situation so that he can take advantage of others. Rather, he attempts to control situations so that it's beneficial all around, so that no one suffers if they don't have to. This creates a contradiction in personality, behavior, and desire, because at his core, Reginald P. Worthington is a nice person, someone who genuinely cares about others. He doesn't like or want to see suffering. If he were to have his way about it, generally everyone would be happy with their lives, get the things that they want, which all runs in stark contrast to his manipulative personality. These are two very powerful personality features that don't usually tend to be found in the same person. And as the story progresses, you continue to see both sides of Reginald. Both his manipulative behavior and his general kindness, his desire to not be on the wrong side of things, if you could call it that. For him, being manipulative is simply a tool. He understands when he is being manipulative, but manipulation and coercion are simply the tools that he uses to achieve the goal of bringing a happy outcome for himself and the people he cares about. This, too, is a product of his life, as manipulation has normally been the only way that he can ensure that both he gets what he wants and the people that he likes get what they want as well. He's never had physical strength or power or influence to force people to do things his way. So, lacking physical or monetary power or influence, he uses the only thing that he has, a sharp mind, the ability to read into situations and find a way to convince others to do what's fair. Once again, I'm not going to ruin the story for you, but for anyone who has read the story, we all know that around this point is when things get dark. Towards the end of the story, there's a sudden shift in tone, when all the optimism and hope takes a drastic shift into darkness. It's in this section of the story that we reach the darker side of Reginald P. Worthington. What happens when all of that intelligence and that developed skill at manipulating the situation, at playing life as if it were a chess game, is suddenly turned to negative intent? When Reginald P. Worthington isn't bound by his sense of right and wrong, when what he's doing isn't purely just for his own benefit, but there's actually a desire to bring harm to others. And in these events, we find that Reginald P. Worthington is capable of great evil. That if he sets his mind to it, if he has the will and the desire to bring harm to others, and if his hand is forced hard enough, then he's more than capable of fulfilling the task. Once again, I'm not going to ruin the story for you, but this dark turn is more or less something that was forced on him. He was pushed to a breaking point, and in that moment, when he was forced beyond his limits, hurt in a way that most people can't even imagine being hurt, Reginald's darkest side came to the surface. All of this amounting to a question. Is Reginald P. Worthington a good person or a bad person? Well, in the story A Dealer's Tale, this is actually one of the cruxes that hold the story together. That good and bad are simply perspectives. That, believe it or not, most people aren't saints. And that if you push anyone hard enough, you can bring out darkness. The question being whether that darkness owns you from that point forward. Whether you decide to be a terrible person, thinking that if you've been bad once, it's okay to be bad as much as you want, or whether you attempt to maintain your sense of right and wrong after you've been pushed to a point where doing the wrong thing seemed like the reasonable option. And in the end, this is where we leave our story and the development of Reginald P. Worthington, at least for the moment. Be sure to stay tuned. If you want to see more videos like this, then remember to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Everything you do helps us do what we need to improve the quality of the channel. And look forward to more character looks ahead. And if you want to hear about any specific character, be sure to leave it in the comments. Our next scheduled character insight will be into the character named Kevin, the protagonist of the heavy metal Night. So, until next time, enjoy your time at Savage Realms, and enjoy the stories that you hear. And be sure to be on the lookout for our next book drop. The next one to drop on the list is Metal Blood.